it's becoming clear that this is only the beginning of a protracted conflict over both the Red Sea, but also the Gulf, this vital region for energy, for trade, and for military security as well.
Strikes by the UK and the US on Houthi targets in Yemen. A Houthi official says the strikes killed at least 5 people and wounded 6, saying they will not go unanswered. Explosions were reported in the Yemeni capital Sana'a, the Houthi Red Sea port of Hudaydah, and the northwestern Houthi stronghold of Sada. Rishi Sunak says RAF warplanes helped carry out what he's described as targeted strikes against military facilities. Gabriel Gavin is Politico's correspondent who's covering the situation. Gabriel, good morning.
Good morning.
So I think, first of all, shall we start with the Houthi reaction to this? And indeed, those numbers, they say, and that is us emphasising that, they say at least 5 people killed and 6 people injured, and that this will not go unanswered. Is this something that, they have to say is predictable, or is this something that carries real weight?
Well, it's still only been a few hours since American and British warplanes and missiles soared through the airspace over Yemen, and that furious Houthi reaction is still coming in, as well as condemnation from their close allies in Iran. This morning, Houthis' self-described Deputy Foreign Minister Hussein al-Edsi said that America and Britain will pay a price for this action. But the reality is, this has been the situation that many people foresaw. For months now, Houthi fighters have been targeting civilian traffic in the Red Sea, one of the world's busiest waterways. And as a result, a number of cargo ships, tankers have nearly been hit by missiles, been struck by drones. And this was something that the Western foreign policy circles were increasingly demanding a reaction to, because prices are rising in the West as a result. Ships are having to go around the Horn of Africa and can no longer cut through the Suez Canal without fear of being potentially boarded by this Iran-backed Shia Muslim rebel group.
Clearly, Gabriel, this is a region where conflict has been bubbling and was really on the brink of escalating. Tensions high, and here come the UK and the US in self-defence, as Rishi Sunak has described it, limited, necessary and proportionate action in self-defence. But here we are on Friday morning, and we're unsure as to what happens next, if indeed anything. Is there a reality in which this is the end of these Houthi strikes on both the Royal Navy and commercial ships that have been travelling through the Red Sea? Is there the possibility that this is the end?
Well, the Houthis have pledged to continue with their attacks, and I think all the intelligence at the moment indicates that they have the ability, the mobility, the flexibility, and the resources to continue those attacks. They say it's in retribution for the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza, but in reality, it's very clear that they are part of a much wider strategy from Iran to sow chaos in the near abroad. And I think it's very unlikely that the Houthis, or indeed, their supporters in Tehran, are going to take a step back from the precipice at this point. Just yesterday, Iran seized illegally a fuel tanker operating under the auspices of the US Department of Justice, escorted its crew, including its Greek captain, to their strategic waters. And as a result, I think it's becoming clear that this is only the beginning of a protracted conflict over both the Red Sea, but also the Gulf, this vital region for energy, for trade, and for military security as well.
And I was considering, I suppose, the other players that are, have got skin in the game here. So Iran is perhaps the most obvious one. And I wonder really what the reaction from Iran, may or may not be. I suppose part of it could be that Iran is asked to in some way restrain the Houthis, but what will they ask for in return? Perhaps cementing something of their place as a puppet master in the region. And then the other note that I picked up actually was around Egypt, because it's the Egyptian economy that's been sort of affected actually by the attacks by Houthis on commercial ships. They've been hit really hard. The Egyptian economy already in a pretty difficult situation. And so could that in some way force the hand of President Sisi of Egypt to intervene either in Gaza or in this sort of Red Sea specific conflict, if you like? There's a lot at stake is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the case not just for Egypt, but for the Saudis as well, for the Emiratis, Qataris. They certainly don't want this conflict. They don't want the conflict in Gaza. They don't want the conflict in the Red Sea, and they certainly don't want conflict with Iran. But I think it's very clear that Iran's strategy has always and consistently been, as a former US ambassador I interviewed yesterday told me, to keep pushing until they are met with a fierce reaction. And I think this is not yet that fierce reaction. I think Iran continues to believe it can sow chaos in the strategic trade highway without any real consequences. But at the same time, Iran has also not overtly attacked Western vessels. It does everything it does through proxies. It ensures that it's generally Arab groups that take the counterpunch when the West responds to these provocations. And as a result, I think it's pretty clear that Iran is going to continue doing this. And at the same time, try and avoid that absolute outright confrontation with the West, which it knows it will lose. Israel is a nuclear state, the US is a nuclear state, the UK is a nuclear state, Iran is a kind of nuclear threshold state that's believed to have at least some degree of deployable nuclear force. Nobody wants an outright war between the two, but we may well get closer and closer towards that brink until one side pulls back. And I think ultimately, given the chaos they're sowing, it'll have to be the Iranians.
Gabriel, thank you very much for your analysis. Gabriel Gavin is Politico's correspondent, reflecting the situation then in the Red Sea after those strikes on Houthi rebels. Coverage continuing throughout the day for you on Times Radio, because as you wake up this morning, as we've been waking up this morning, there are still lots of unanswered questions. Crucially, what happens next? And nobody can be quite certain of that, and so it remains to be seen.